Hello, Fritz.
The Bears are who we thought they were.
The Bears. The Bears.
I am the great Cornholio.
We'll see what happens.
The playoffs?
See, Sean McDonough, Jay Billis. Goose.
Can you play a song? Something cool.
Put my mic on.
I'm calling both games.
Oh, baby.
Goes down the field for Smith. Oh, he caught it.
Seattle. We're getting ready for Cincinnati.
We're getting to the Browns falling apart in terms of injuries. Last night, Baker Mayfield didn't play. Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb didn't play. OBJ's been battling an injury for the whole season. Or I think he was injured last week. I think he maybe even got hurt before that. Who knows what's going on there. Jarvis Landry just got back from injury. He looked pretty decent last night. And the big story there, though, was Baker Mayfield was inactive. And I think he had played like 50 straight games, or he started 50 straight games for the Browns prior to last night.
Goodness.
And I think that was like the longest run a Browns quarterback had starting a game ever, because they were going through all the numbers last night, and I think there was like since 1999, I think it was, they had like 31 different quarterbacks, including Mayfield and Keenum, start. And I mean, just when they finally get their guy, Mayfield's hurt, and things are kind of falling apart again. And word on the street was that they don't really know if this is... Oh, the headphones are back. That's nice. Word on the street was that they didn't know whether or not this would be a long-term injury or not. And because apparently, according to the announcers last night, what the injury was for Mayfield was a partial tear in some kind of ligament in his shoulder. And as I don't know if it was Aikman or Joe Buck that said this, but one of them said that partial tear doesn't just heal itself. It doesn't untear. So that's going to be something that he's going to be dealing with throughout the season if he continues to play. And I think the reason he was inactive last night was really just to try to figure things out, try to figure out, hey, can he play through it or not? Because, he's either going to say, hey, I'm going to need to get surgery, and he's going to be out for a prolonged amount of time, possibly even the season, or he's just going to try to play through it. I haven't seen any update on that recently, but Case Keenum in his first start for the Browns, I think it was his first start in 2 years, threw for 199 yards, 1 touchdown, and as I said, Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt were out, so they had D'Ernest Johnson start last night, and he had 146 yards and a touchdown. So the injury-ridden Browns looked pretty decent last night. Jarvis Landry, in his first game back since week 1, had 5 receptions for 37 yards, no touchdowns. And those 37 yards, I thought he had a lot more than that. Austin Hooper led the way with 42 yards. And I got to give a credit to Keenum. He kind of spread the wealth around. They didn't rely on one receiver or tight end in the receiving game. It was evenly spread across the board. But, the Browns, I think with everybody healthy, I think without a question they would have been able to kind of shut the door on Denver. But with all the injuries going on, I don't know how much you can really expect from them last night. Denver just kept hanging around and couldn't finish the deal late, and they dropped their 4th straight game. Broncos are looking bad.
I mean, like even when they were 3-0, I never thought that they were like a legit team just because of the teams that they played. But now, after dropping 4 straight,
showing their true colors.
Yes, this is very interesting to watch, especially after last night when, like you said, the Cleveland Browns are really hurt. So when you're going up against backups and you're losing games like this, I mean, the Browns, when I was watching, they ran all over them. They couldn't stop the run anywhere. So now like looking back on it, it's like Denver isn't really that team. And even if all the starters were in, man, this probably would have been a bloodbath.
Yeah, and the first drive, I think they got down to like the 2-yard line in 4 plays. I mean, they just marched on the Broncos on that first drive. And as you said, that was a theme that we saw all night with the run game. And it's one thing to kind of get taken in the woodshed with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, but when the Browns are running down your throat with D'Ernest Johnson, their 3rd-string running back, there's probably an issue there. And even Von Miller got hurt last night. And I want to double check on that real quick, but the Broncos, man, oh my goodness, as you said, the first 3 games, they they won against cupcake teams. I think it was the Jets, Giants, and Jags. Not the best teams in the league, but they were still 3-0. A lot of people are saying, okay, they can kind of compete. I never bought it. I said the Ravens game was going to be the first big test for them, and ever since then, they've been falling apart. Von Miller, as I said, was forced out of the game last night due to an injury. It was an ankle injury, and so Von Miller apparently came out and said something after the game. He said, quote, "My pride hurts more than anything," Miller said. That's an odd quote. I mean, he got injured. He's playing really well this season. I guess he's getting older, so I think maybe he's kind of realizing that he's got to be careful with injuries. Miller said, quote, oh, no, that was going into the week. Okay, well, I mean, I don't know if he played well or not. He had a few big plays. But Von Miller, again, and this is the thing that we've seen with a lot of guys coming to the end of the career. When they get hurt, it's kind of that narrative, like, well, are they going to be able to come back from this? Von Miller, he's a monster. I don't want to hear anything like, oh, he's done. But according to NBC Sports Pro Football Talk, Miller said he believes his ankle will be okay despite being unable to return to the game. So it sounds like for them it was much more of a kind of they kind of sat him out of caution.
I mean, as a coach, I would too.
Yeah.
Especially when you have Von Miller, as he's been a captain since like day one, it seems like. I mean, I would put him on the bench immediately, especially against it's still relatively early in the season, but it's to the point where you don't want to fall back too far in the standings. Now the Broncos are now at the bottom of their division after these 4 straight losses. So, I mean, I heard about his ankle injury, but I never looked into it to see how bad it actually was. But when I heard the quote that his pride hurt, I took that as a bad sign for Denver fans.
Yeah, and I saw the replay of the injury, and it wasn't pretty, and I was like, oh boy, that's going to take him out for a little while. But I guess he's all right. I don't know how it looks. Maybe it just looked worse on TV than it really was. But back over to Cleveland, there were questions swirling in Cleveland before the Mayfield injury, and we really heard a lot of them, at least I did, last week when they played the Cardinals. People were saying, is Baker the guy? And I almost put my fist to the wall because I was like, are you serious? Are you like, I couldn't believe it. The Browns have been an absolute dumpster fire for the past 20 years. They finally get a decent quarterback who leads the team pretty far in the playoffs, the furthest they've ever gotten in 20 years. Yeah. They finally get that guy, and now they're off to a 3-3 start heading into last night's game. They're 500. They are saying, is Baker the guy? I hate that take or narrative, whatever you want to call it. And like this Browns team that they have right now, like right now they're 4-3, but going into the game last night they were 3-3. Browns fans would have killed to be 3-3 4 or 5 years ago. And now they have it, and I think they're really taking talent for granted right now.
That was their 0-16 year. I remember that. I was actually shocked that they managed to pull it off. But I mean, even now you can't even like worry too much because like at the divisional standings now, basically the Browns were behind the Bengals by 1 game. The Bengals are 4-2 at the moment, but they're playing Baltimore this week. So either way, whether Baltimore wins, that means they're tied with the Bengals, and if not, if let's say the Bengals pull it off, that means they are still 1 game out from first place. So I mean, I wouldn't even worry if I was a Browns fan, but I'm shocked that people said that about Baker.
Oh yeah,
I didn't think anybody would say that after watching him take them to the playoffs.
Yeah, and there was one quote that said, I forget who exactly it was. I think it was just some random person on Twitter or whatever. But they brought up a good point. You know, I think some people expect too much from Baker Mayfield. I think they expect him to carry a team.
Yeah.
I'll agree that Baker's not the guy to carry a team. He's not a Lamar Jackson. He's not a Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers. The list goes on there. Baker Mayfield's not that guy. Baker Mayfield is a kind of a supporting cast. Like he can. He's not a guy that you can rely on, but he's a guy that you can, if you put decent guys around him, if you kind of build a team around him, he can take you far. And we've seen that in the past few years. So like you said, I was just absolutely shocked that we saw that. And, it wasn't even really on Baker in previous years. Their coaches have been awful as well.
Yeah.
And, now they finally have a coach with something between his ears other than a black void, an empty void. They got shut down by one of the best teams in the league last week, the Cardinals, and they're plagued with injuries at the moment. And I think there's a lot of overreaction in Cleveland. I think part of it is people are taking what they have for granted, and the other part of it is that they finally got up to I don't know. For Browns fans, it's the mountaintop, but I think that they got up to where they want to be, and I think now they're worried about falling back down to the bottom of the league again.
Yeah, they probably went through some PTSD when they started seeing their standings, their current standings in the division, and were like, "Oh God, we were so good. They were so good last year. They were projected to be possibly even better, especially with the addition of Jadeveon Clowney on that D-line. But even now, he's hurt. So, now they're probably going through a little bit of a scare. But ultimately, man, they're all going to be back. Kareem Hunt will be out a good amount of weeks, I'd say. Baker, I thought he just dislocated his shoulder.
That's what I thought too, but apparently it's a tear.
Now it's a tear, so that kind of scares me a little bit too. So I can kind of see where the Browns fans are worried, but all of their players are going to come back, and if they were able to beat, if they were able to hold on to the Broncos, I'd say that they can. That just goes to show that they can still win games.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. And there's nothing to worry about in Cleveland. Every team goes through this. And on the other hand, a lot of people were saying that the Browns' struggles right now are due to injuries, and that was another take that kind of frustrated me a little bit because every team has injuries. You look at in prior years, the Eagles, when they won the Super Bowl, they had tons of injuries. They still got far. The couple years after that, they had plenty of injuries. They still were able to win their division, whether it was a weak division or not, is neither here nor there. They still get to the playoffs. I think one year they even won a game. And this year, look at the Ravens. They got 1 million players on injured reserve. Yeah. And they're 5-1. They're the best team, record-wise, they're the best team in the AFC with all the injuries. So, I understand that injuries are tough to go through, but we saw last night injuries are no excuse. You can still win games with injuries.
Absolutely. It all comes with the coaching staff and even the depth. Look at the Ravens. They just pull some people. They signed a bunch of running backs like Latavius Murray, Devontae Freeman, Le'Veon Bell, all because their running back room was so badly hurt. And obviously the coaching staff knew what they were doing, and the whole Ravens staff knew what they were doing, because obviously that helps them in the future. Same with every other position that seems to have gotten hurt. They just call up the next guy, and he's there performing. So I'd say a huge shout out to the depth in the coaching staff. Can people, in my opinion, say that the Browns' failure is due to the injuries? Partially.
Well, yeah.
That can't be the main reason. The next guy just has to step up.
Yeah, next man up mentality for sure. And every team has injury issues. It's not like